James Riddle Hoffa, widely known as Jimmy Hoffa, was a legendary labor union leader who built a powerful legacy as president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters IT. Hoffa's influence was monumental, but his sudden and mysterious disappearance on July 30, 1975, would become one of the most baffling and enduring mysteries in American history. Despite decades of investigations, theories, and countless rumors, Hoffa's fate remains unsolved, and his disappearance continues to intrigue historians, law enforcement officials, and the public to this day. In this article, we will explore the life of Jimmy Hoffa, his rise to prominence, the events leading up to his disappearance, the numerous theories that have emerged over the years, and the lasting impact his disappearance has had on American culture and law enforcement. The rise of Jimmy Hoffa. Born on February 14, 1913, in Brazil, Indiana, Jimmy Hoffa grew up in a working-class family. His early life was marked by hardship, and he quickly became involved in labor movements after dropping out of school at the age of 14. His first major involvement was with a campaign to secure fair wages and working conditions for agricultural workers in the Detroit area. Hoffa's talents as an organizer soon led him to join the Teamsters, one of the most powerful unions in the United States. By the 1950s, Hoffa had risen to prominence as the president of the IBT, and under his leadership, the union grew exponentially. Hoffa was known for his fierce advocacy for workers' rights, but he was also known for his controversial connections with organized crime. Hoffa's dealings with notorious figures such as mafia bosses led to numerous legal issues and corruption charges. Despite his legal troubles, Hoffa remained a central figure in the labor movement throughout the 1960s. His power and influence, however, were not just due to his leadership skills. Hoffa was known for being ruthlessly ambitious, and his association with criminal syndicates made him a target of both the government and rival union leaders. As Hoffa's prominence grew, so did his enemies, both within and outside the world of organized labor. The disappearance, July 30, 1975. The evening of July 30, 1975, began like any other for Jimmy Hoffa. He was planning to attend a meeting at the Match's Red Fox restaurant in Bloomfield Township, Michigan, with two mafia figures, Anthony Tony Jack Giacolone, a Detroit mobster, and Anthony Tony Provenzano, a powerful figure in the Genovese crime family. The meeting was supposedly to reconcile Hoffa with Provenzano, who was a former ally but had become estranged from Hoffa over disagreements about the leadership of the Teamsters and control of union pay. Hoffa had been trying to reclaim his position as the leader of the Teamsters after being released from prison in 1971. He had been convicted of jury tampering, attempted bribery, and fraud, and his imprisonment had made him vulnerable to losing his grip on the union. His return to power was not welcomed by all, especially those who had taken over while he was incarcerated, and Hoffa's attempt to mend fences with key mafia figures like Provenzano seemed to be part of a strategy to regain control. However, Hoffa never made it to the meeting. According to witnesses, Hoffa arrived at the restaurant, but neither Giacolone nor Provenzano showed up. Hoffa waited for a significant amount of time, but when they failed to appear, he left the restaurant. This would be the last time anyone reported seeing Jimmy Hoffa alive. The investigation into Hoffa's disappearance began almost immediately. Authorities were puzzled by the lack of concrete evidence. No body was found, and there was no clear motive for his disappearance. The initial assumption was that Hoffa had been the victim of a kidnapping or foul play orchestrated by the mafia. Law enforcement, however, would struggle for years to piece together the puzzle of what happened to the powerful union leader. Early investigation and media attention. In the wake of Hoffa's disappearance, the media frenzy intensified, and rumors about his fate ran rampant. FBI agents began investigating the case, but they found little evidence to pursue. Hoffa's connections with organized crime families made the case even more complicated. Mafia figures were notoriously tight-lipped, and many potential witnesses were either unwilling or unable to provide substantial information. Hoffa's ties to mobsters such as the infamous Detroit Mafia family headed by Tony Jack Giacolone and the powerful New Jersey Mafia figure, Tony Provenzano, only added layers of intrigue to the investigation. The theory that Hoffa had been murdered by the Mafia was soon bolstered by reports that he had been seeking to regain control of the Teamsters, which would have angered several criminal factions involved in union racketeering. The FBI began focusing on the possibility that Hoffa had been killed and his body disposed of in a way that would make it difficult to recover. They began looking into various locations that Hoffa may have been taken to, including a number of rural sites and even the possibility that his remains had been buried and cemented various constructio and projects. However, despite their efforts, no concrete evidence ever surfaced. Theories surrounding Hoffa's disappearance. Over the years, several theories have emerged about what happened to Jimmy Hoffa. These theories range from simple explanations to elaborate conspiracy-driven narratives, but none have been proven definitively. Below are some of the most widely discussed and debated theories. 1. The Mafia kill theory. This is perhaps the most widely accepted theory and suggests that Hoffa was killed by members of the Mafia. Hoffa's relationships with organized crime figures like Provenzano and Giacolone had been deteriorating, and many believe that Hoffa's attempts to regain control of the Teamsters would have threatened the criminal interests that profited from the union. The theory goes that Hoffa was lured to the restaurant by the Mafia figures under false pretenses. Once there, he was likely abducted, killed, and disposed of by members of the Detroit Mafia or other organized crime figures involved with the Teamsters. Some reports suggest that Hoffa was buried under the concrete foundation of a stadium or construction site. 2. The Tony Pro theory. Another popular theory centers on Hoffa's estranged relationship with Tony Provenzano, a high-ranking member of the Genovese crime family. Hoffa and Provenzano had a long history of tension, culminating in a bitter feud over Hoffa's efforts to regain control of the Teamsters. Some believe that Provenzano may have ordered Hoffa's death because he feared Hoffa would disrupt the organized crime operations that depended on the union. In this theory, Hoffa may have been killed to silence him once and for all. The details surrounding the meeting at the Matches Red Fox restaurant support this theory, as both Giacolone and Provenzano had motivations to eliminate Hoffa. 3. The revenge theory. Another theory suggests that Hoffa's disappearance was the result of a revenge plot. It is well documented that Hoffa's aggressive tactics and the labor movement made him several enemies. Many of these enemies were other union leaders who felt threatened by Hoffa's rise to power. This theory posits that Hoffa's rivals, both within and outside the Teamsters, conspired to remove him from the equation. 4. The body in the barrel theory. A more elaborate and bizarre theory suggests that Hoffa's body was placed in a barrel and then transported to a remote location for disposal. Some have speculated that the barrel may have been submerged in a body of water, or buried in a remote, hard-to-access area. This theory, though far-fetched, gained attention because of the difficulty in finding Hoffa's remains, which may have been hidden using such a method. 5. The Hoffa faked his own death theory. While this theory is often considered far more speculative, some have posited that Hoffa may have faked his own disappearance in order to escape the pressure from law enforcement and the Mafia. According to this theory, Hoffa staged his own death and lived under a different identity for the remainder of his life. However, this theory is unlikely given Hoffa's character and the extensive investigations that have been conducted in the years following his disappearance. The lasting impact and legacy of Jimmy Hoffa. Though the mystery of Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance remains unsolved, his legacy is far-reaching. Hoffa's work as a labor leader and his controversial dealings with organized crime changed the landscape of American labor unions and their relationship with criminal enterprises. Hoffa's disappearance also led to increased scrutiny of the mafia's influence over labor unions and their corrupt activities. Several government investigations into organized crime followed Hoffa's vanishing, culminating in the 1980s with the prosecution of numerous mafia leaders. Though Jimmy Hoffa's fate remains a mystery, his story continues to captivate the American public. Books, movies, and documentaries about Hoffa's life and disappearance keep the intrigue alive, and his name is forever associated with the shadows of the American labor movement.